and welcome to another edition of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith. How do you like our new headlines, folks?
Hey Taylor, good to be chatting with you again. Apologize for missing last week. Caught down with a little bit of a bug illness, but feeling much better. Looking forward to getting back to work.
All right, so we're going to talk about why tanking won't help the Pistons, the situation in talks between the Red Wings and Dylan Larkin, the chances of the Lions bringing back Megatron, and some Tigers broadcast news from Bally Sports Detroit, along with the bankruptcy situation with the Bally Sports Company. So let's get to it right now. I'm going to explain as to why tanking will not help the Pistons. They have been losing records over the course of the last going on 4 seasons since they made the 2019 playoffs when they got swept by the Milwaukee Bucks, and Dwayne Casey has still been their head coach. Whoever they pick in the NBA draft every year, even if it's Cade Cunningham, Isaiah Livers, Luka Garza, Jay Nivey, or Jalen Duren, I know at least some of the players have developed. I know at least a couple have gotten injured, or at least one, or something like that. But the
Well,
team,
there
the
was the
team
issue of Kate
itself,
Cunningham's injuries.
yep. But the team itself, in general, I'm not talking about individuals, but the team itself can't develop in any way, shape, or form as a team, and they can't win games. Even if the Pistons tried so hard to work their way back up, it just doesn't seem to be happening at all. So in the NBA draft lottery, for example, whether they move up, win, stand pat, or drop down, no matter who they pick after the lottery to join their team in the main meat of the matter NBA draft, it doesn't help them as long as Dwayne Casey continues to stay as their head coach. He is their nuclear virus that needs to be disposed of. So, Ed, you see where I'm going with
I
this.
was getting ready to say, I think I can tell from what the meat of your matter here in terms of what goes beyond the headline of your take. And I can definitely see why, right, tanking alone will not help the Pistons. Whether or not if you somehow, win the lottery, win the magic ball and somehow get the number one pick again, which means, hooray, we get Victor Wembanyama, cool, awesome. That means you have an absolute generational nucleus of talent between Cade Cunningham, between Jaden Ivey, between Jalen Duren, and others, like you already mentioned, Isaiah Livers, for example. Uh, Maybe Killian Hayes, if he's still here, who knows? And then you add in the potential of Wembanyama. Yes, that's excitement. That's potential energy. But you also need development. Okay? As much as Lions fans were excited to see and get Aiden Hutchinson and see him in action, we needed to see the development. And what did we see over the course of his rookie year, especially with what Dan Campbell and that coaching staff did? Development. That's how he got those 9.5 sacks. That's how he got those 3 interceptions. That's how he's considered one of the potential front runners to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Okay? While we see glimpses of what Cade Cunningham can do, we see glimpses of what Jaden Ivey can do with his speed. We see glimpses of what Duran can do with his rim protection and rebounding ability and whatnot and so forth. Especially when he's paired with Isaiah Stewart, it's not consistent enough. That's the thing. We haven't seen that next level step up, that next stage in development, that progress that shows, okay, you have the ability and the capability to be this consistent on a week in, week out, year in basis. And that obviously starts with coaching. Period. I mean, there was a reason why people wanted to see some accountability from Dan Campbell after the 3-win season last year and the 1-6 start last year. And then what did you see? The 8-2 finish. You saw what the offense has been able to do the whole year. You saw the defense get better. You saw the development of certain key players and key spots. I already mentioned Aiden Hutchinson, of course, James Houston, of course, Kirby Joseph, so on and so forth. Malcolm Rodriguez, you get the drill. We haven't seen that kind of type of thing in terms of our own homegrown talent here on the Pistons. We've seen, consistency from guys that we brought in, like Bogdanovich. Thank goodness we're going to be keeping him around. but we just haven't seen too much of that from our guys. Granted, I get it. Cade's out. He's hurt. You know, granted, you don't want to see that become an alarm, but it is something to look into. Like, why does this guy have some potential injury problems? But still, I refuse to be that cynical in terms of Cade's future. I think he's going to be just fine as long as you give him the proper help. In terms of both on the floor, yes, but especially it starts on the bench too. And as long as Dwayne Casey is the head coach, I just don't see that progress happening. I don't see that development, that nurturing, growing to that next level happening. There's a reason why that Toronto got rid of him even after he won Coach of the Year, because we just didn't see that next stage. And we're not seeing it here, even in the supposed rebuild for the Pistons. It's just not the right fit now. So knowing that as soon as this season's over, no matter what happens with the lottery or whatever, we got to have a new coach for next year. It's just as simple as that.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. It may seem obvious to most Pistons fans that don't quite understand this yet. That's why we're talking about this live, and it's very, very simple to talk about. So,
right. I mean, you're looking at your spot right now. What, you're one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league, record-wise. You're at the bottom of the barrel of the East. You have no chance in hell of making the playoffs. That was even before Kate got hurt. Granted, yeah, it's a good thing that maybe, more than likely Bojan Bogdanovic is staying with the Pistons. He's not going to get traded. But hey, what does this mean for the deadline? Are you going to move someone else? Is Sadiq Bey a possibility? Is Killian Hayes a possibility? You never know. It could turn out to be someone we don't even expect before. Or they just could do a stat pat and just try and make a deal in the offseason around the draft, like what we saw eventually with the Jeremy Grant situation. All those factors are at play here. And I'm not going to, just like I'm glad there were some Lions fans that didn't want to throw doubt on what Brad Holmes was and is trying to do here. I'm not going to do that same. I'm going to do that same favor to Troy Weaver. I see what type of plan he's going to do in terms of getting the talent necessary for this team to compete and play for and win championships. It's just a matter of, can you find the right coach? That's all it comes down to.
exactly. So there's that. I can't wait until the Pistons fire Dwayne Casey. To be honest, I don't know what his contract details are or how many years he has left in his contract.
And if they don't, then that's a failure mark on Tom Gorse. That's a failure mark on the owner.
Yep, Tom Gorse.
Period.
Yeah. Not on Troy Weaver. That's on Tom Gorse, not the owner, not the general manager.
Okay. Hopefully he's paying some attention to this as more attention to this than he did in terms of the what was it, the prison phone call deals that he was making money off of.
Yes, we discussed it with Bianca Tylik about a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, of Worth Rises. So that's the me of the matter with the Pistons and Dwayne Casey. So hopefully after they fire him, they start to develop.
I mean, folks, it's not worth it.
Coach.
It's not worth doing recaps of what they got their teeth kicked in for the third straight game in a row. We know how bad their defense is. Okay, the offense is doing as much as they can without Cade. What else is there to talk about? What else is there to talk about, really?
Right. So that's it for Pistons. The Red Wings and Dylan Larkin. It's a tough money situation between those two. Larkin wants to stay in Detroit with the Red Wings, but he wants no less than $9 million per year in a contract extension. General Manager Steve Yzerman, as of right now, can offer $8 million, and it's becoming a very tough deal. So I messaged you and Frank and Darren that article from ESPN. Written by somebody. It was like, yeah, Dylan Larkin hopes to stay to Detroit, but it's really it's just not negotiable in terms of money.
With the way that certain articles can be phrased, which is a few key words and a few key sentences, That's what help creates the lingering doubt or suspicion, or in the words of Larkin himself in his camp in terms of talking about this over the All-Star break, misinformation. So, yes, while we can agree that there may be a difference in terms of what the Larkin camp may want of money and how Eisman feels the Larkin should be getting in terms of salary, yeah, there's a difference on that. Yeah, but you can find a way to come to an agreement, to a compromise, some sort of deal. It's called negotiating for a reason, especially when you look at the fact that, hey, for example, Bor Horvat, who was going through a similar situation of what Larkin was doing with Vancouver, the Canucks said, you know what, we're just going to trade you. They sent him to New York. He's with the Islanders now. And what did the Islanders do? They decided, yeah, let's get this done. And they signed him to an extension, and he's going to get $8.5 million a year. And I think that is a number you should have to pay attention to, because remember, this is Bo Horvat. He is a guy who has scored a more consistent as a offensive, productive center when compared to Dylan Larkin, and he's getting 8.5 million. If Larkin and his camp thinks Dylan is worth 9 after seeing what Horvat just got, you might have to reconsider that just a tidget. I get it. I get it. They're both different players. They have different styles. But here's the thing. Here's the fact. One guy scores more goals. The other guy doesn't. I understand what type of player Larkin is and what he brings to the team, his abilities. He may not necessarily have the pizzazz or the flash of a Datsuk per se, but he carries himself very well. And there's a reason why he has earned that C, why that he's earned that captainship for the Red Wings. They don't just give those out nilly-lilly, okay? There's a reason why you've only seen it hand down, from Howe to Lindsay to Eiserman, Lidstrom, Zetterberg. You know what I mean? Now it is Larkin's turn. There's a lot of weight that comes with that.
Gotta
And
earn it.
yeah, you got to earn it. Now, the type of season that he's doing so far, where he's the leading point getter for the team, the leading goal scorer, the leading assistment. He is the key cog that makes their offense go. Absolutely correct. He's their best player on the team. Absolutely, he's what you want in a captain. He deserves the captainship. I've got no problem with it. But I think in terms of what his camp, in terms of what they believe he's worth, they might have to learn a little bit of a reality lesson here, because let's say, for example, Larkin picks up the pace. Like, listen, we saw him net 5 goals in the All-Star game. Okay, should have won MVP, by the way. But can you see him do that type of production over the next few weeks in the second half of this season? You would love to see that, and if it does, then guess what? That gives him a better chance to say, hey, I deserve this X amount of dollars, this X amount of dollars, instead of making Eiserman, come to a better agreement. He's going to stay and budge, because what Eiserman likes to be patient. Lalonde knows this as well. He described it as well, of what Eiserman's his methodical approach is like. So everyone knows this. We saw him do this at Tampa with Steven Stamkos. I seriously doubt this is going to end in a situation to where Dylan Larkin will be wearing a different sweater next season that doesn't have a winged wheel on it. Okay, what it's going to likely come down to is Eiserman will see this whole thing play out through the season. He'll make up his mind of what type of offer he can present to Larkin, and then in the summer he'll present his offer. And I'm more than likely, with what Larkin sees, it'll be more than satisfactory enough to where, if it's not a first glance signing, they'll work out some some last minute details, last minute kinks or whatever, and we'll get this deal done. I don't see this becoming a situation to where it goes on. We see other suitors come in. No, this is not going to be like a Sergei Fedorov situation or anything like that. I see Larkin staying with the Wings. I think everyone else sees that. It's just a matter of, can they come together on the amount of money? Because we can pretty much narrow it down. They agree on the amount of years. Now it just comes down to the dollars. But you got to make it make sense.
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than people think. So they have to be patient as well. So, well, only time will tell. That's Red Wings. Now, last week or probably the week before, was a report that the Lions were in talks with Calvin Megatron Johnson about a possible return to the team. What are the chances of that happening, Ed?
Well, in terms of the team, in terms of being around the franchise and the team, the facility on a more frequent basis, we're talking about that type of ambassador role, like what we see Barry Sanders do now. See other things, because I think what he already got his moment when they had his speech after he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I can't remember if he had his number retired or he's in the Ring of Honor or whatever the case may be, but still, more events and occasions to where we see Calvin front and center instead of being absent. You know what I mean? Because don't forget, there was that time and period where it was awkward to see all these other functionings and other events at the Silverdome, and Barry wasn't there. I think it was after he got done to the Hall of Fame. They waited a couple of years, but things finally thawed out. We saw the Ford family bring Barry back into the fold. I think it's a similar situation of what we're going to see here. Calvin, thankfully, has been able to keep himself occupied, whether it be opening up his cannabis business within the state, for example, the amount of charities I'm sure he has contributed to as well. In addition to what would be his aforementioned Hall of Fame induction, very well to see him do so much with his post-football life, knowing that he retired on his terms, walked away from the game with his health in his hands, and he's been able to develop a great post-career niche out of himself. And I think this is a similar situation of what we saw when Barry eventually came back to the fold. We're going to see that here with Calvin, but we should give great credit to Sheila Ford Hamp, in my opinion, for this, because remember, what's said when that New York Times or New York Post report of how things were trending up in terms of Calvin's words. That's a welcome positive update, in my opinion, because we've heard about the stories for a couple of years now about the Lions withholding money for Calvin, money that he thought he earned or deserved or whatever. Same thing that he did with Barry, but again, if this thing progresses the way I think it's going to progress, a lot of credit should be given to Sheila Ford. Absolutely should.
All right, well, we'll see what happens down the road. And finally, Bally Sports Detroit has hired Cameron Maybin and Todd Jones, former Detroit Tigers players, as Tigers analysts on Bally Sports Detroit, while Jack Morris will be out at least for at least 2023, this upcoming regular season, this calendar year, due to financial measures, according to a source inside the team. They offered him less work, but he wanted more to get paid more to give to his son to go to college. So that's where Jack Morris has to step out.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Craig Monroe will be the full-time analyst.
Mm-hmm. And Todd Jones will be the part-time or the sometime or the studio guest or the studio analyst.
Well, we'll have to figure out which particular positions Cameron Maybin and Todd Jones will take, unless you already have them.
No, I just figured a guess, because eventually, it's like what we saw with the Red Wings, what they did with Osgood, and then what was it with Murphy as well, and I think Draper as well too. So this is a similar situation
Jimmy Howard
here.
I think Chris Draper's working in the front office with Nicholas.
Well, this was years back. This was years back when Holland was still in charge. That's what I was thinking of. This is when I used to watch. Right. This is when I used to watch cable on the regular. This is when you still had Holland in charge. This was when we saw those guys, their post-playing career being still around in the fold in the front first with the TV analyst job before eventually making their way into the front office with the organization. So I can see that as a potential starting point here for Maybin and Jones. We'll see. I do like seeing Craig Monroe getting the promotion that he's gotten. He does his job well enough. He shows good enthusiasm. He works hard. Shows good effort. I think it's getting recognized by the folks up there, and good for him. Now, it is interesting to see how things will work out. Now, I think first of all, I was like this could be a potential financial relocation rather of funds because remember, with Morris out, they could use that money and spread that around somewhere else. So that could probably explain why they made the hires for Maybin and Jones. That being said, you have to wonder how the potential future of how this presentation will look for the Tigers in terms of being the TV giving out TV for their games within the city. Because remember, Sinclair Sports is filing for bankruptcy. Sinclair is the owner of the Bally Sports regional sports networks, so you have to wonder, with potential rights and bids opening up, could we see YouTube TV going back into the fold? Could we see another potential buyer like say Amazon, or maybe we'll see the NHL and the NFL or baseball decide, listen, we may decide a different form of service in general in terms of streaming or letting the teams decide for themselves. This could be a potential big game changer. Like, listen, there's a reason why Artie Moreno of all people stopped his potential sale of the Angels because he knew this news was coming down the pipe of the regional sports networks filing for bankruptcy. Remember, he signed that big massive deal over 10 years ago after he got Albert Pujols that made him the money that he's made now. So the fact that Moreno turned this deal down, this is about what 4 or 5 weeks ago. That tells me he knew of this Sinclair news. Someone leaked it, dripped it to him that it was coming down the pipe. So he moved fast while the iron was hot, and so he's going to hold on to that team for as long as possible, much to the chagrin of Angels fans.
Wow. So that's the main culprit of this whole bankruptcy thing, huh?
Well, I think that's just a nugget, a detail, a red herring that Moreno knew somehow, some way that this news was coming in terms of what Sinclair was going to do with the Bally Sports Networks and how the Bally Sports Networks connect into Sinclair going bankrupt. So in terms of covering, to cover his own behind, Moreno had to do what he had to do. And for now, at least, forget about this sale with the Angels.
Right. So, yeah, that's very, very big and very, very national. That's that's gotta largely affect this whole Sinclair bankruptcy thing.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
that is all that we've covered on this episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor
It
Phillips.
is.
He
It is.
he
Well,
is
if I
and
may
he's Ed
interrupt,
Smith.
if I may interrupt for a brief second, since we still got enough time left on the air, I would like to make a brief shout out mention worth announcing that it was announced today by the WWE that their annual big summer annual extravaganza event, essentially their second biggest show of the year after WrestleMania, SummerSlam, is coming to Detroit this year.
Hmm.
Saturday, August 5th. The biggest party of the summer is going to be held at Ford Field. So it's not going to be at the Little Caesars Arena. It's not even going to be at Comerica. It's going to be at Ford Field, which doesn't surprise me because as of late, over the past few years and and decades now, WWE has decided to run their biggest shows. Started with WrestleMania, now it's expanded to other shows like Royal Rumbles and SummerSlams. Start running them at stadiums. We saw them come back to Detroit for WrestleMania in 2007 with WrestleMania 23. Now, 30 years after the WWE held SummerSlam back at the old Palace of the Auburn Hills, SummerSlam returns to the Metro Detroit area. Not only that, they're going to be right in the heart of downtown, smack dab in Ford Field. And you know what? I'm going to be looking to find my way to begin some tickets.
All right. Well, be safe. Have fun. What
Will
and with
do.
that
Thank
being
you.
and with that being said, I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow him on Twitter at EdSmith313 and on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page, subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and listen in audio form on Spreaker. Business shoutouts go to Cali Tickets. Call Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Cadillac Nutrition in Uptown Cadillac. Download the Engage app to place an order for an iced or hot protein coffee, energy tea, or protein or post-workout shake. Creative embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my t-shirt and long sleeve shirt. United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan. The Ito Ramen House in Royal Oak, rated Detroit's best Japanese restaurant for consecutive years. Call 248-556-5775 or log on to itoramenhouse.com. Stop by to place an order. You'll love their sushi and their cuisines. And the Red Ox Tavern in Auburn Hills. With that being said, we'll talk next week here on the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and then the week after that, back on Fire Up Michigan. Until then, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips, CTFN. Ta-ta for now. Hit him with a hind. We close our case. Stay safe and warm, everyone.
Later.